Bismillah Rahman Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. A'udhu Billah Shaitan Rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one. Rabbi Ghfirli. My Lord, forgive me. My Lord, forgive my species for all the sins that they consciously and unconsciously do. Ihdina Sirat al Mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. All right. So, hello everyone. I can't sleep, so I'd like to give a lecture, but also because I feel that if I was in an advanced civilization, part of daily protocol would be to report back to the species, like a So tonight, I guess you're hearing the howls of my soul in cyberspace. So, it's a deep title. If I wasn't me, who would be me? Or actually, if I wasn't here, I find it a privilege to be able to have an intelligence as a human being, as we all do, to be able to fathom different models to reality internally. The volume should be better now. Honestly, let's dive into this episode. Taking a check. Playing pure commitment to this picture. So, ladies and gentlemen, what can I tell you about this? See, I am not perfect. I don't know exactly what to say, but I do have an ability to convey my observations. And so, something fascinating about my day, pretty much these lectures are me noticing what's fascinating about reality. for a moment, it just occurred to me, if I wasn't here, who would that means if a human being like me had never existed, what sort of human being would be born that would be the closest to what I was? You understand? This reality is so bizarre that what can I say honestly? I mean, all right, let me see if I can analyze it here. So if I wasn't here, who would be me? That's the question. So this title it has two ways of kind of looking at the question. Okay, so there's a personal view, two ways to look at it. One is a personal. In other words, who is answering the question? And from my perspective, me and my perspective, and then there is the world beyond me's perspective. So if I wasn't here, who would be me? Because I know my own mannerisms and behaviors and values and whatnot, I could fathom, I could see how a human being from a different life could reach these values. See, one is like, okay, if I wasn't here, who would be me? Based on the answer. Okay. Like I can honestly, it's more than two ways to look at it. There's actually many ways you can answer, but it's about, see, when a question comes, it's like there's a missing scene. Okay, let me say it this way. As a problem solver in on Earth, okay, which human beings are. So as a problem solving human being, when I see a subjective problem, because I'm a visual thinker, language translates cinematically to me, in the sense that if I read a book quickly, it becomes a film. Okay, so
in the sense that even when people speak, it's as if they're animated. That means if somebody says something too graphic or messed up, it bothers me because my mind envisions it. Right? This is why when it comes to human language, I constantly say I love and hate relationship with it because there's some idioms, there's some ways of speech that people don't understand they're saying because they have been culturally, they have become culturally numb to it, right? So I'll give you an example, right? And this is something that, like for example, every culture you zoom in, you can kind of see, ineffective elements in that cultural program and system. For example, something in Iranian culture, okay, which I think every Iranian kid knows, right? When, for example, like somebody more like a motherly or grandmotherly figure, right? When they see something like messed up happen or something happen to, like, imagine, like, this. I'm not saying they all are like this, but I'm saying it's in the language, it's in the lingo of the reacting to moments. And so, for example, when a child trips, like imagine a young child trips, the mother shouts, "May God kill me!" Right? But she doesn't say it like that. It has no association to being a religious act or anything. It's just a manner of speech. It's like what people said, "Oh my God, like God, please kill me, but don't make this happen." Right? And so it's as if like the top of the phrase kind of stuck. And I remember like, I think, I don't know if it was with my mother or whatever, but I know that there's been a situation where I've heard somebody say this, and I've been like, don't ever say that around me again. You know, what that means is, if this is why, for example, even when people are rude, like if that rudeness is descriptive, it's disturbing. Do you understand? For me, anyways, what I'm saying is language translates into cinema for me. It's a cinematic experience. Okay, communication is a cinematic experience. Now, when I, for example, like look at the title of this episode, right? For me, when I think about if I wasn't me, if I wasn't here, it would be me. It's kind of like my mind having to see a cinematic experience where if I suddenly disappeared right now, how would I feel about the closest entity that either is alive or will be that is going to be similar? You understand? At the same time, there could be, like, it could be that, like, right now, like, for example, the way my a certain modality of my behavior, it has more reference to the antiquity of culture, because honestly, what do I do as a human being? As a human being, you pretty much wake up every day, you log in back into this, for the sake of speech, multiplayer online video, okay? I don't know if people have played this, but in the future, like the generations and so forth, people are going to just be playing multiplayer games. What I mean by this is you're logging in every day into this human experience and you activate the sectors of your experience. So, for example, when you wake up in the morning, okay, you're in some sense logging in back into the character's movements. Okay, pretty much, I'm telling you, this world is very mysterious. The way the system is designed is as mysterious as we can find a reference for. And the thing about the world is that it doesn't have a reference. For example, in the world, the content, the individualized content in the world can be referenced. I can compare a tree to like a stone column of a building. Okay. But you can't compare the world to anything because it's world first. right? And when it comes to human beings actually knowing what's going on, it's kind of bizarre, right? That means when I think about, like, okay, what really is going on Earth is pretty much the game of humanity trying to figure everything out, and it's doing it in the process of systems.
Sorry, guys, just 1 second. I'm trying something out here that I haven't done before, and if I can pull this off, it's going to be amazing. Okay, I did it. I don't know why that black thing's there in the corner, like that box, but anyways. So somehow I've managed to share my screen here, and it's going to be easier writing the notes actually. Okay, whatever. I got to start from the beginning. All right. Let's see what we can do here, folks. All right. Why is it like that? Okay. All right. Let's do this. Isn't it wonderful to be alive, to ponder the mystery of why we are alive? All right. the lecture notes. If I wasn't here, who would be? If I wasn't here, nobody would. That's one answer. Since, yeah, that's a cool view. That if I wasn't here, it's as if there would be none of my concerns, none of my problems, none of my suffering. So it's kind of bizarre. Even though right now I'm here in the human experience, I'm kind of wondering what the world would have been like if I had never been born. And what did I really change? What did I influence? And the answer is you 100% have some influence. That means they're like, hey, man, how did you advance Earth while you were alive? And the answer is like, yeah, man, I was that background character, walking, doing my own thing in life. And I was in the background pictures of tourists. So I was, in some sense, a part of the world. Let me see what else I can answer. That's too crazy. If I wasn't here, who would be me? If I wasn't here, perhaps someone would be born to live not in the exact way, but to acknowledge the value in what I saw. Do you know what that means? That means there may be a human being born, completely different entity, like completely different lifestyle, whatever, but they come to the same conclusions. And I'm a very deep and firm believer that every human being on this earth will come to the conclusion that in some sense there is a humanity here and we all want to see what its most advanced expression is, right? So many self-help gurus, going to people and being like, yeah, man, think of your best version of yourself. And it's kind of depressing because the best version of ourselves wouldn't be here. So perhaps someone would be born if I had never existed. Perhaps somebody would be born in history, their attention would go on the word within, and they'd wonder about who am I really, and they'd be like, I gotta go within to kind of figure out, like who am I? Who's looking within my eyes at the world, you know? And it's as if some person would be born and they would use the term Mr. Within. So I personally think that at least some parts of my life that have related to this project and this development of this archetype of Mr. Within, it's simply the individual that becomes fascinated that what is looking through their biological eyes is as unknown as what they're looking at their biological eyes. So what's fascinating is that we human beings are basing reality on knowledge, but knowledge is just that little small bridge we're on that is between the inner unknown and the outer unknown. So we've kind of allowed the known um, inner and the outer inner, and the known inner and the known outer to, in some sense, be in the domain of conscious free will, supervised as an I thought or as a character in a story. So it's another way of the question is another way of saying, I hope this is being recorded. It is. The question is another way of saying what would come to the same conclusion as you, even if it didn't live the same life or it did, you know? That means, for example, I know that for like maybe 60% of my childhood, or I shouldn't say that, maybe it was more. Like I was oblivious to who I was, what I could do, how far I could understand reality. And I understood that there was something uncertain about anime. Like actually acting here, isn't it? But anyways, so if I was in here, someone before to live like I did for their time, like I did. Oh my god. It does it like nothing beats like air and water, fresh air and like pure water, like appropriate water. So anyways, let's see how far we can go. If I wasn't here, who would be me? What's another way of answering this? They can use all my lectures and create an AI version of me only based on the content of the lectures. So I'm probably like I'm not gonna live till then, like till the far future, obviously. But the echo of the pattern of what I am. So what is the great task at hand? It really depends on it because it says if I wasn't here, who would be here? But the question can also take your attention to how do you define how do you define I? That means how do you define the individual to wonder if there's going to be an individual like you again. That means like right now, I'll be honest, I take this as a sort of achievement victory, right? I take it as a victory of our species, even though it's something I've done alone. And out of every human being, like you see, like credentials aside, out of every human being around me, I have noticed I'm the only one who cares for advanced civilization. Like to the degree that I am shocked. Like how do I say? Like there's like when they say somebody is a true believer, it's because their experience has come to that reality about. For me, one day it just shocked me how behind our eyes we can see an advanced humanity, but in front of it we're not behaving like that. Humanity is in a cave. 1.0 is a cave, just like the caveman, right? And you stay in the cave until you feel you can go beyond the cave and also you get bored and you realize the limitation of it. That means technological progress has been way more advanced. You know what it is? It's kind of like we stopped our evolution as biological entities, like we slowed it down, so that everything else can. Because I'm telling you, right now,
it's like it's disturbing to think about like advanced genetics, you know. But it's not disturbing to think about like advanced, androids or robots. Like it's less disturbing.
What I feel is that it doesn't matter if I was not here or not, because my value system is going towards the collective legacy of the human species. Dear human beings, only God knows what's in our heart, which means only the system admin knows truly the depths of the user. It means right now, as I'm here, I am being myself, but I do not know the depths of myself. And you're listening to a human being that has a consideration, as I am Muslim. It means that my ego has become secondary to the primary focus, that this whole time we have been inside a divine surveillance state, and we are also simultaneously, we use a term like contexted as in somewhere, but we are in a simulation, a simulated testing zone. So if people want to get like too deep about it, right, the metaphysical purpose of man is to notice truly that the physical is a simulation. And let me tell you how this world room has been designed. And these are just one man's thoughts, but it's kind of been designed. This world has been designed for nothing to work out truly. So you realize you need the higher. This is such a key idea. You understand? I'm pretty much telling you, if you were like a simulated being inside a simulation, freaking out about how you noticed the simulation, after you've calmed down, you're going to wonder, okay, what do I do with being inside the simulation? Okay, and as you mature to the notion that reality, like behind your eyes, sure, your mind can adjust to your convenience, but in front of your eyes, the system is moving for you. See, because I have a notepad here, let me just kind of get into this. In actuality, to what sometimes, in actuality, to be able to truly answer any question about the human being, we need to clarify what is the human being. Now, most people have an answer to this. That answer involves a character in a story that its future is limited to how aware the being actually is. In other words, most people are characters inside a world
that they only can see. Or let me say it differently. In other words, most people are being subjective characters in an objective world, but this implies that a subjective character must be existing in a subjective world. Therefore, what something is and what something means are values in two different, differently textured worlds. What does this mean, guys? It means that the human, how do I say it? The human being is living two lives at the same time. Just a second, folks. Excuse me, to continue. Guys, what I'm saying is huge. Like, I might not be saying it in a jolly way that you want to hear, but like, if you actually look at what I'm saying here. So, the human being is living two lives at the same time as one life and wonders why there is uncertainty of self. Guys, it's really important. Understood. I think it's part of the innate code of being an advanced human. And do you know what it is? That means to me, if somebody ran up to me and was like, "Mr. Within, you talk about advanced civilizations. What's the difference between an advanced human and a human and a being that's not advanced?" I would say the main difference is that if you talk to the being that is not advanced, the only thing that can be real to them is only their own values. You see, the game of humanity in 2025 is kind of like human beings are born and they're following this endless to-do list, okay? And life is honestly a sort of self-obsession because the person has to survive. But if you find moments where you can actually wonder about reality, you will suddenly notice how limited you are. They talk about the limitless in such great ways, but they don't talk about the limitation. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they talk about the limitless. That means, oh my God, that being was limitless. That person's mind was limitless. That person's poetry is limitless. Da 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 da. This chart on this page is limitless. You know, and it's kind of like a moment where I'm like, yo, man, how have people not realized to notice your limitation is as or even more fascinating? You understand? To notice your limitation as a conscious being means you can do something about it if you accept it. But most people can't accept reality because of the self obsession to do this. So if I ask you, what do you look like? You formulate your answer based on objective reality, based on objective existence. But if I ask you, I mean, I was gonna take it to say, I was gonna say, what does your personality look like? But here, I'll say like, if I ask you, what do you look like? The answer is based on the outer realms. But if I ask you, what does something you're looking at mean to you? That answer is not formulated based on current objective existence, but rather subjective memories. So, what I'm trying to say is that, dear human being, you've heard another human being tell you you're living two lives at once. But what does that mean? It means that you're living in this one life based on the type of question that is asked you. You in some sense find the value, right? You extract the values based on different realities. Sorry, guys. So where I'm going with this is meaning equals subjective position and matter is an objective position. But now this argument gets way deeper because how do we know that matter, that objects and subjects exist? Well, since we are aware of both of them at the same time, we cannot be limited to just one of them. The the probable answer is that we are neither the object and neither the subject, but rather
the awareness to them that encompasses the whole moment. However, when we wonder how this awareness moves, if man only limits the answer to that question to his capability or possibility, he will be lost. But if he realizes that ultimately what is moving the moment to be even able to understand and be aware that it's moving, is not him, he will start noticing the higher power. So, what I'm trying to say is, you could be whatever, like, you could be a Vedic monk that's like meditated for decades in a cave, and people think you've achieved enlightenment. But you don't need to do all that to notice the higher power. The higher power, it can be noticed by anyone who can accept themselves and notice themselves as the lower power. What does this mean? He will start noticing and considering the presence of a superior, intelligent administration and higher power. See, where I'm going with this is that it's just a matter of consideration. The title is just a way of being like, yo, how are we valuing the human being? So, my current view on it is this. Excuse me. If I was like suddenly, let's say one day I'm just walking in the park and somebody passes me a microphone and says, "Everybody on earth is hearing you. What do you have to say?" This is what I would say. I would say it fascinates me how unaware we are of how advanced we can be. Advanced in what ways? This is it. This is what I pretty much how I see life. I say, okay, there is the self to deal with. I need to deal with myself from till, my whole life pretty much. Then we have the species to deal with to deal with. Then you have the world to deal with. That means, like, after you've become the most advanced self, after you've made everybody into their most advanced selves, after you have an advanced civilization, right? Then you're like, man, the world's left. We gotta discover the most advanced relationship of our species with the world. So then this is something that I shouldn't say deal with, admin to acknowledge. That means, what is the most advanced relationship of a simulated worldly of a simulated being with the original power that there we go. What is the most advanced relationship of a simulated being with the original power that administers the simulation? These are the four things you need to handle. And I think the ideals are this. What does my most advanced self look like? What does the most advanced state of my species look like? What does the most advanced experience of the world look like? What does the most advanced with the system admin look like? These are the four questions you pretty much need to answer on Earth. So the most advanced self would obviously not be you right now. See, guys, look at how the world changes. One moment, you're typing, the other moment, suddenly four people and one like. So, guys, pretty much what I'm saying here so far is that if you can answer these four questions, you're going to be a pretty advanced human being in my eyes, at least. But to be honest, it's not like these questions have an answer. We're wondering about, I pretty much see it this way, that human beings are born in a world, and then the whole game, the whole life is just you have a value system and it's updating. That's it. That's it. So, okay, anyways, let's try to answer these. See, these are concentric circles. So the first question is like the first circle, then we have the second circle, third circle, fourth circle. Now, here, this is, I'll give you my honest answer. What does my most advanced self look like? I am conscious of the presence of the system admin's mercy. This is what I would consider. Then what does the most advanced state of my species look like? So I've written here a species that is efficiently advancing faster than it's making inefficient mistakes. It's a ratio thing. That means if there were more kind people than cruel people, we'd have like more advanced human beings here. But at the same time, it's not that chaos can be avoided. It's not that we're here to kind of change the world, but we are here to kind of live in the world. And in order to live in the world, we do humanize it. But and it's not that I'm trying to say you got to be dehumanized to be like close to God or something. I'm saying that you are human. You're here, and the relationship you have with the system admin is that it's a higher power. So compared to an ant, like a politician can be said to be a higher power. The ant can't understand politics. Now, if humanity was the ant, what can it not understand? So it's all about, there's something it took me years to understand, but it's the notion of emotional maturity. And it's this idea that somebody who is emotionally immature is only seeing their emotions in the moment. That means they care about, it's as if they're still dealing with their own emotions. This is somebody emotionally immature. Now, somebody emotionally mature understands that they are present in a world with 8 billion other human beings, and everybody has emotions here. And if they only think if a person thinks their emotions are only important, we'll be like, yo, man, uh, that's what childhood was for. Childhood kind of is like the development of the ego. The ego has to have moments of claiming its own value to kind of solidify into itself, right? Because really, where do we extract human identity? It's kind of like, it's weird, but it's kind of like, I don't know, the coagulation of all of our memories into now. No, no, guys, I'll give a different answer here. A species that is aware of the most advanced being, most advanced power. If the most advanced is intelligent, then we are wondering about the most advanced being. Advanced state of a species would be advancing faster than the speed of light, and at that point it won't be visible. But prior to that, we don't have just outer advancement, we have inner advancement, and these two things are parallel to one another, and there's like a kind of locked relationship, not locked, but there's a kind of relationship there, right? Like if we see a soldier on a battlefield with a sword and a shield, right, we're like, yo, man, look at that character in a movie depicting like history, look at that soldier, those two soldiers with a sword and shield fighting, right? But we don't wonder about like, how did that soldier feel, how did that other soldier feel? Do you understand? Like it's some parts of reality, because we're acquainted to objects, we keep objective. But it seems that like the mystery is also internal, in the sense that if an atheist says, I don't believe in God, and then you say, wait a minute, before I ask you that, do you believe in yourself? And the person says no. It's as if something that doesn't exist is rejecting something that doesn't exist, and there's nothing more miraculous than that, you know. Guys, it's this reason I'm fully conscious of the system admin of its world. A world That's technically the most advanced state of the world would be the end of days. What does the most advanced relationship with the system admin look like? My answer would be yeah. Anyways, guys, I try to answer this. If there's questions people have, feel free to ask. Let me see what else I can say here. Let me just riff it. Let me see. Let me just find a song and see where my heart takes me. Okay, to continue. أعوذ بالله الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. We human beings are not perfect, but we are aware of reality. I know that the species will advance because when I look at the past, it has. But when I wonder about how it will advance, that's the question. And something I know that is upon us is how we're being ushered into an era where the human being is identifying with a completely new definition of what it means to be a human. To imagine suddenly they told you to be human means you have to be responsible for yourself, you have to be responsible for your species, you have to be responsible for your world, and you have to be responsible for your relationship with the system admin. In the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I created mankind and jinnkind for the sole purpose of worshiping me. And it also says, I don't remember exactly where, but the view is very profound because it says that if everybody on the planet stopped sinning, right, and was perfect, God would wipe them all out and bring in a civilization that still sinned so that there would still be something to make them realize that there is the higher power. You see, it's not just fascinating that there is the possibility of a higher power. Like, it's not just fascinating of the idea of it, but also the notion that we're having a living relationship in the presence of it. I sometimes wonder how important is what I find important throughout life. It's kind of like realizing you can do something in infinitely different ways, and then after some point, being like, what preference can I possibly have? Similarly, for the intellectual capacity of the human being, upon the realization of the infinitude of perception, upon the realization that there's so many ways to look at the world, that which way do we look, we in some sense try to organize reality in accordance to our truest values. You see, man is a kind of creature that because he's positioned in a way where it's like dimensions have more meaning than one. It's like in front of my eyes, yes, I am just a biological human being. Okay, you ask me, I give you the human story. But if you ask me who am I behind my eyes, the honest answer, if every you ask anybody, would be is that we don't really know what we actually are, but we know that the conditions we're in is giving us a specific scenario. Like I don't know who created this world, like personally. Like I shouldn't say it that way. I should say that it's like I didn't create this world, but I can see enough uniqueness and systematic hoodness. Like that's the next. Like I could see how it's a system. I could see how there's an administration that's calculating beyond what just the human being thinks. I personally know that there is moderators in this reality. I know that spiritual people are not crazy, but they are confused in the sense of what is the value of metaphysics and why are we initially positioned in the physics. Excuse me. You see, your life will remain the same until you find a question that makes you want to see more. Okay, so for me, I notice everybody is obsessed about answers. Okay, everybody is looking for the answers to their problems, their solutions. What is truth? They want an answer. But I was like, okay, what if what we're missing here is looking at the question? And what if life is not motivated by a sort of imposed subjective dream sequence, in the sense as that the person's ambitions of the future is being the dream that's motivating them to be something in reality? To me, if they say who is a good general in a battle, I will tell you anybody who can notice beyond themselves will begin noticing the collective, and the collective is less conscious than the individual. What do I mean? An individual can change their ways quickly. A civilization can't quickly change its ways unless human consciousness just revolutionizes. A part of me as a human being in 2025 feels deep down in the core of my being, God is my witness, I feel that the reason we can envision advanced civilizations with our inner life is because that we can actualize them in the outer. Do you know, for a long time I thought genius was just the quality of an individual. It could be, but to be honest, in a changing world, novel patterns are genius. All acts of genius are the introduction of something new that in its value is a response to previous problems. That means what is more genius than one answer that solves all problems? That means I don't know if there's a more genius idea than the notion of a system and of God. You know, I am Muslim, which means my truth is not limited to anything in the world. And so to live life and acknowledge a power that not only created this, is maintaining this, but will end this, that there will come an ending. In the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says every soul will taste death, which means that whatever we do in this life, it only had a value to what remembers it. And for someone who is Muslim religious, they are not returning. It's like for them, the world, it's like it's how do I say it? Life, this world room is not empty. And to me, it's kind of like it's like at the end of this life, I'm telling you this directly, for those who acknowledge a higher power, you're returning to it. In the Holy Quran, everything returns to God. When the end of days comes, the sky cracks, the sky breaks. Do you understand that the simulation breaks? And your review of what you did in the simulation, it mattered. Religion is kind of proposing a humanity where you're being watched not by that which is below you, but that which is beyond you. If you ask me what is the most advanced thing like a human being can do on earth, I'd be like, yo, man, there's a higher power here, get to know it, and it's singular beyond any worldly shape. And so the most advanced thing a human being, a simulated being, can do inside a simulation is to try to notice and establish a relationship with the original. Now, the second thing greatest thing a being can do in a simulation, after that means, imagine you've done that, you've established a link with the creator by consciously acknowledging its reality every moment, and believing in God is as simple as feeling like how that ant feels when a politician is staring at it. We're in the sight of a higher power. We're in the presence of it. Do you understand? That means I am not God. I'm not like the yogis who are like, yo, man, I'm God. I stopped moving. And I'll be like, no, you're not, you know? And it's just that moment where you begin to realize that they created a culture where they made you worship instead of an idol. That, you know what it is? Like back in the day, people made idols like whatever version they wanted it for themselves, and they're like, this is my idol, this is my statue I'm going to worship. Guess what's happening today? The statues are not outside, the idols are inside. It's you making yourself and worshiping yourself your whole life. You see, if you had the privilege of it either being like you worshiping nothing or you worshiping God, okay, but it's not like that. It's that your attention, like a bird, eventually has to land down on some branch, and most people, they are worshiping themselves. But when you realize you cannot complete many things, do you understand? It's like we're in a world that's like tough until you acknowledge what makes it easy. I don't know how to explain it to you, but for example, if there were extraterrestrials, let's say peaceful, that kind of came to like have diplomatic relationships with Earth, like we'd have to deal with that, like whatever power they are. right? So similarly, I'm saying it's like if I ask you right now, what is the most advanced thing you can communicate with? The answer would be that which is beyond the world, which is the definition of which is the starting point. That means if I want to start, like, that means like you gotta kind of, like, metaphysics was inevitable because people wondered what comes after the physics. It's as if, like, there was a sociologist believing sociology only mattered. Then the psychologist was like, yo, buddy, right? And then the psychologist thought only they mattered, the reality of psychology mattered. And, and then the biologist was like, yo, buddy, there's this. And the biologist thought only that matters. Do you know what I mean? And so the chemist looked at the biologist and was like, nobody, there's another sector, like another way to look at it. And then what the chemist couldn't answer, they went to the physicist. And sorry, the philosopher was somewhere in between. The philosopher is probably like between, like after, before the psychologist. Like, after the, like, yeah, before the psychologist. In between biology and psychology. Anyways, right, what I'm saying is it eventually comes back down to how we're all staring at this massive unknown event, and how we're knowing it is how we're accepting it. Something I've have had to work on is not just, like, how they say, like, accept yourself, sure, but you can't just accept yourself, because yourself is based on how it's differentiating itself with the world, right? So to kind of accept yourself, you have to accept the world that self is in, which means you have to accept everything in that world that self is in, right? So eventually, to accept yourself is to accept everything. But to accept everything, with what sort of back end value? For me, like, the way I'm treating it, I'm like, okay, because I born and I'm gonna die, so that's like my biology is simulated. My consciousness is simulated daily, and then I sleep, and then I wake up again. Right? When I think about, like, when I try to solve my problems or whatever, I'm just simulating new angles of perception. So reality to me is obviously simulated. It's constantly, things are like changing. That's what it means, right? That means if it was just a snapshot photo, then we'd be like, okay, it's kind of difficult to say if it's a simulation. But because it's changing, we see inside the simulation, like, smaller simulations. Do you know what I'm saying? We simulate as a simulated being inside a simulation, but somehow we're aware we're simulating inside a simulation. Therefore, the question comes, what is the true relationship of man? And for me, I was like, okay, it has to do with intelligent interaction levels, which means me as a human being, what sort of intelligence am I interacting with throughout the day? Now, imagine somebody living in the forest. Okay, they're interacting with, like, I don't know, animals or something, right? That's a type of intelligence. Imagine somebody at a computer, like a programmer. They're interacting with the technological intelligence, right? So, or like, I don't know, a doctor interacting with biological intelligence. So what I'm trying to say is, ultimately, you are working with intelligence, and what intelligence means is how the moment animates. And once the moment animates, what's typical is that it falls into the value systems of the conscious nodes, the viewing points, right? So what that means is that it's like I'm like a character in my own story, you're a character in your own story. We're walking, and suddenly something external to both of us happens. And what happens, we both externally see, okay, but what it means that happened is something that only we each individually see. So what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of interesting. We're in this public existential server, but everybody has an internal subjective private server. Okay, and believe it or not, it's from that private server you kind of come into the terms of acknowledging reality. Like, see it this way. If you think truth is about the limitless, you're spiritual. You're going to go towards limitless selfhood. And you're going to realize it's not a dead end. It's kind of like an access denied situation. So, spiritual people, go try to be as spiritual as you want. But for Muslims, at least, the soul is the secret of God, as it said in the Holy Quran. What does that mean? That means you can never know it. Because the secret of a being that is beyond reality means that which is in reality cannot fathom it. What it means that we're in a simulation means we're inside a box. Now, Muslims are those beings inside the box that are saying the truth is outside of the box and nothing in the box should be worshipped. But for example, Christians are different. The Christians are like, no, truth came into the box, lived into the box for all of us, right? And then left out of the box, right? And then came back and then left. I don't know, or I don't know if Christ died a second time. I don't know this actually. Maybe some Christian theologian can explain this to me. But it's just the notion that that which is okay for Christians, it would be like the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. I'm saying the Father is outside of the box. So how could something inside the box be outside of the box? The answer from the perspective of man is illogical, but from that God died, right? But from the perspective of God, God can do anything. So it's best to keep some things as unknown. And in Islam, everybody should know, even though as a Muslim, what Prophet Muhammad did, peace be upon him, was like the finale. He just pretty much told everybody worship that which is beyond the box, beyond the world. And you can't get any more superior than that. That means to me, religion is like an ultimate answer. It's bizarre. That means you don't understand. Religion is a solution to problems that we never knew we had. That's how advanced it is. Okay, to me, if they're like, Mr. Within, what's the most advanced technology you've seen? I'd be like, okay, sure, we give one to like technology and cyberspace, but I'd say the first thing is honestly the Holy Quran. Because when I started viewing this world as an existential system, and then I had an experience here that it made it clear to me that there's a system admin. I put aside even acknowledging the moderators, and it became obvious to me that the same time that I am experiencing myself in the world is the same time that I'm experiencing myself in the presence of God. So the fascinating thing is that there's a constant surveillance. That means there was an original awareness prior to the creation of man. There was an original awareness in the creation of man. There was an original awareness in the maintenance of man. There will be an original awareness at the end of man. And it's kind of like the original doesn't go anywhere. We, as the simulated, kind of return. Now, what's very bizarre is that this ideal subconsciously is there. But if you ask a theist and atheist, it's as if the atheist would say we came from nothing, we will return to nothing, as if like the starting point and the ending point is the same. And in religion, we were created by God and we return to God. The starting point and the ending is the same. Do you understand? So it's just a matter, and you got to ask yourself, what is the value of knowledge? I guess in the domain of epistemology, what is the value of knowing something? Have you ever thought about this? Understanding something, like what is the value? Like that means what is the value of somebody saying 2 plus 2 equals 4? And what is the value of you seeing, for example, 4 tables, or 4 chairs, right? That means the value of something is in some sense how it shifts the thing that like noticed it from its starting point. Like, how do I say it? It updates. Now I realize that the educational system is like this happened. Make sure you remember it. If you don't, you're never gonna become anything in the world. And I'm like, holy shit, education system's freaking intense. But in reality, it's not knowledge you're looking for. You can look for it and it's available, but you're looking for understanding, which means how does the knowledge work and how is something you become aware of applicable to you? For example, me becoming aware on a squirrel in a tree, more than that, becoming a metaphor in my talks, I don't know what other utility it has. Do you understand? And when you look at the human experience, it's kind of strange. Like, I mean, nature's kind of showing us how to live. Like, lions hang out around lions, ants hang around ants, eagles hang around eagles, fish hang around fish. And it's not by choice, also, like for fish, but what I'm saying, like, pretty much it's the idea that the design that you are found as a conscious entity in, you go and communicate in that domain. And I would honestly say to anybody who doesn't believe in, like, the higher power, just you answer me this. You just tell me this. I want you for a moment to consider all the other species on this planet and wonder which species has the greatest ability, possible ability to come to communicate to that which is beyond it. That means, like, a squirrel doesn't have an ego, but the human being does. And because its ego separates it from the world, it can notice that which is beyond it. So you might not believe it, but sometimes you're in the way of your own way, you know? Anyways, thank you for listening. Auzubillah shaitan rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one and ignorance and evil, unnecessary ignorance. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Gfirli, may God, my Lord, forgive me and my species for the sins that we are conscious and unconscious of. Ihdina Sirat al Mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. May, may the most advanced guide the species in the most advanced and in the best way. Like, at some point, I was like, what can I pray for other than the best outcome for all situations? And the best outcome is only known by the system admin. So it's kind of like, if you don't want the best outcome, you're working with imaginable expectations. But if you want the best outcome, then technically the best answer would be, like, after you have the best imaginable answer, it would be the best unimaginable answer. So man can give himself the imaginable, but it's only the system admin, the divine, that gives the unimaginable. Anyways, thank you for listening. Um, it's all due to the greatness of God and God's mercy. What that means is it's because of the system admin we're still here. That is a point of honor. Anyways, thank you for listening. Good night.